This is where worship starts. Here we go. Here in the temple of my heart, remembering who you are, what you've done. This is your majesty, all I had tasted and I've seen, remembering who you are once again. I see the Lord forever glorified, exalted and lifted high, and all of the kingdom it cries, you are the Lord. This is eternity, deep calling deep inside of me. I'm right where I'm meant to be, here with you. And this is your family, stretching as far as I can see. I'm right where I'm meant to be, once again. I see the Lord forever glorified, exalted and lifted high, all of the kingdom it cries, you are the Lord, seated upon the throne, the God who is three in one, the Father, the Spirit, the Son, you are the Lord. Yes, you are the Lord. Holy, you are the Lord. Worthy, you are the Lord. Holy, you are the Lord. Worthy, you are. I see the Lord forever glorified, exalted and lifted high, all of the kingdom it cries, you are the Lord, seated upon the throne, the God who is three in one, the Father, the Spirit, the Son, you are the Lord. Holy, you are the Lord. Worthy, you are the Lord.
Good morning. How are y'all doing today? All right, sounds good. We're going to worship Jesus together because he's worthy. I've been learning lately that often my most overwhelming circumstances are the deepest invitations to get closer with Jesus. And there's something really powerful that happens when we declare who he is over our circumstances and our lives and our families and our city. We start to remember who he is and all he's done for us. God's love is reckless. He leaves the one, or the 99, to find the one, just for you and you and you, every single person in here. He has sought out and fought for. And so we're going to declare who he is today together. Is that okay? Let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my son. Let the king of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my son. You are good, you're good. Oh,
never gonna let me down. You're 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 never gonna let me down. You are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. You are good. You're good. You're never gonna let me down. 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 Is holding on to me. God is holding on. And the night is holding on to me. God is holding on. Hear the word roaring as thunder, with a new future to tell. For the dry season is over, there is a cloud beginning to swell. To the skies, heavy with blessing, lift your eyes, offer your heart. Jesus Christ, open the heavens, now we receive the Spirit of God. We receive your time. You are Lord, Lord of the harvest, calling our hope now to arise. We receive your rain. We await the promise to come. Everything that you have spoken will come to pass. Let it be done.
Reconciled back to you in this room. God, your spirit will be speaking to people. Jesus, and I pray they would respond. Thank you for your spirit. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for who you are, your love and your grace and your mercy, God, and that we get to worship you and live life with you. We love you. I've been reading this book, and this author I read last week, he talked about how the disciples didn't have to be smart, but they had to be loyal. The only thing they had to be disciples was obedient. And so if you're in this room right now and you feel like there's just something that keeps coming to mind that you need to get out of the way to get close with Jesus, just get it out. It's not worth it. Jesus is the best thing for you, and he wants only the best for you. So if that's you, just give it to him. He's worthy. You're like starlight in the dark, and their smiles can't conceal you. Every glimmer is a spark, catching fire as you break through. You're not far away, you're coming close. You know, even as I
the very oxygen I'm breathing in. Breathe you in. You are God with us. You are here with us. Emmanuel, Emmanuel. You are infinite, victorious. No one, Jesus, Jesus. You're not far away, you're coming close. You know, even as I wait, you're coming close. You're like starlight in the dark. And their smiles can't conceal you. Every glimmer is a spark, catching fire as you break through.
Father, we worship you. God, we thank you that you're close. God, that you came to us. God, we worship you. Father, because you're worthy to be praised. As we just sing, the first words of this song is, you're like starlight in the dark. And what that tells me is that when we're battling stuff, we're battling the darkness inside of us, the darkness around us. If we shine light on it, that darkness has to flee. That's the great thing about Jesus. He's come to shine light. And he's called us to do the same thing. For the past several months, I've battled something. I battled depression. Not many people know about this, and that's okay. But I didn't know what I needed to do. So I sought guidance from my pastors, from my brothers, from my sisters in Christ. And they recommended that I let my wife know. The woman who has become one with me in Christ. And what happened is when I did that, when I shined light on that darkness that I was battling, instantly it had to flee. And I'm not saying that if you're battling depression, if you go to someone and you shine light on it, I'm not saying that you'll get that same result. But what I am saying is that you'll have people to fight with you. Because he's like starlight in the dark. And when we bring Jesus, when we bring something to Jesus, something that we're troubled with, something that we're struggling with, that darkness has to flee. He knows each and every one of our hearts this morning. He knows the number of hairs on our head, because that's how intimate he wants to be with us. So this morning, church, can we worship him? There's no heart unseen. There's no space between Jesus and us. He's not just out there. He's here this morning. He's ever present. So if you're struggling, if you're battling, give it to him. Shine that light on it. Tell someone if you need to. And there's no greater time than the now. So can we surrender to him, church? Can we do that this morning? Let's sing with us.
There's no heart to see. There's no space between you and I.
Can we surrender to him, church? He's here this morning. He's here for you. He's here for me. He is the God with us.
You are God with us. You are with us. Emmanuel, Emmanuel, Emmanuel. You are infinite. Your You're not far away, you're coming close. Oh, even as I wait, you're coming close.
You're like starlight in the dark, and your smiles can't conceal. Every glimmer is a spark, catching fire as you break through.
You can be seated.
Heart on fire.
Good morning, everybody. How are you guys doing? Man, it's good to be with you this morning. We're so glad that you are here. And let me just take a moment real fast. If this is your first time joining us, we're delighted that you're our guest today. And we'd love to give you a little gift bag with some really cool custom popcorn in it and some other little goodies as well. So if you weren't given a card on your way in, let me just invite you real fast to grab our connection card that's in the seat pocket in front of you. Looks just like this. And fill that out, and then check on toward the bottom. That's your first time here. And we'd love to welcome you properly. So just grab one of us in the back after service with your card. Or if that's not your thing, don't worry. You can just drop it in the offering as well. And if it's your second time coming back, we're glad to have you again. And we'd love to talk to you more about our church family and help you get connected here. And even give you a T-shirt. So if you grab one of us right after service at our info table, we'll take care of you there as well. So we're excited about today. We're excited about what God wants to do in your hearts and lives as we start this week. Amen? So a few things I want to let everybody know about. How many of you guys know that sometimes we go through a busy season in life, right? Right now it seems like that. We got a lot going on, but it's not one of those busy seasons where it's overwhelming. It's busy with excitement, and we're just so thrilled about what God's doing. A few things I want to let you guys know about. Today we have an opportunity to bless our community, show them that we care, show them that we love about them by doing something simple and practical. We've adopted Clemson Road from Hardscrabble to Longtown. If you'd like an opportunity just to put some feet on the ground, some hands in the air, and do some good, join us after this service. Frank, who's over here, he'll be leading our team. So great opportunity for you to serve our community. Next thing I want to let you guys know about it. We're trying something new this year. If you've been around for a while, you know about this. And if you're new, what we do is we sell fireworks as a way to support our missions teams and our missionaries. It's a great way to tap into our South Carolinian pyromaniacs, right? And it's a good tool, again, to support missions. We're going to try to sell at Memorial Day. So if you guys would like to tell your friends about that or get 15% off, we have some coupons just for you guys that is at our info table today. Also, next week is an exciting day because we're doing baptisms. You see, here we understand and we believe that baptism isn't what saves us, but baptism is an outward expression of what Jesus does in our hearts and lives. It represents how Jesus went into the grave and rose again. When we go into the water, we're putting to death our old selves. We're showing that Jesus does that, and we come up a new person. If you started following Jesus recently, or maybe you've followed him for a while but haven't been baptized yet, this is your next step. Jesus tells all of us that follow him to be baptized in his name. So I'd like to invite you. Come grab me if you want some more information, or you can sign up online, and we'll give you all the information that you need after that. Vivechurch.com. Cool deal? Awesome. Now, like I said, we got a bunch of stuff going on, and I'm actually skipping most of the other stuff I was supposed to let you know about. But there's several people I want to recognize today. The first person, I want to bring a guest on stage real fast. Miss Jackie Varner, where are you at? Come on up here. Would you guys give her a round of applause as she makes her way up here? Now, many of you guys know Jackie. She's one of our cafe coaches, and she's been part of Vive for a couple years now. And Maggie and I have enjoyed getting to know her and her husband, Michael. And Jackie, you are a chaplain at in the Richland Palmetto State System, correct? Tell us a little bit about what you do real fast.
Well, I tend to serve people that are inpatient hospice, so they have about 2 weeks or less to live. So when they come in and they're admitted to hospice care, generally it's just support for the family as they're kind of moving towards their transition from this life to the next.
So she's doing a really powerful and very difficult ministry. And Jackie, over the last several years, has just poured her heart and life into ministry. And she's been working on something called ordination. And in our group of church, ordination is the highest level that you can get. Now, we have a lot of people that have different levels of credentials and different programs, but we make a really big deal out of ordination because you have to go to college for this. You have to go through all these interviews and take a test, and it's an arduous process. And I just want to share with the body that this week, Jackie was officially ordained. We're so proud of your accomplishment, and we're glad that we're your church family, and we're proud of what you're doing in our community.
Thank you so much.
Love you, Jackie. You have a great time. All right. Excited. Now, I have another guest, but before our guest can come up on stage, so our next guest cannot be filmed, cannot have any pictures or anything on the internet posted about them, and we're going to tell you why, but it's an exciting thing. So, without further ado, Mr. Blake and Miss Michelle, right? Did I get it right? Yes, okay. I was calling her Melissa, and it was really embarrassing and bad. Would you guys give them a round of applause real fast? So, come on over here. So, these are our guests this morning. They are missionaries going to
Happy Sunday. We made it. Another week down, man. Man, that was exciting, wasn't it? This whole past week. So how you guys doing? Man, you all right? You guys got to work on that, man. You guys, I said, how you doing? Everybody groaned. So sometimes it's good morning, Lord, and sometimes it's good, Lord, this morning. Right? Hey, this series on Esther has been a lot of fun, hasn't it? Esther, she's an amazing woman. I'm really excited that we get to discover purpose together. This has been a really neat trip. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have. But today I want to jump back into it a little bit. But before we do that, does anybody here like baseball? Okay. There's much more here than first service. I said that in first service. They just stared at me. But baseball, man, I played baseball for 13 years. I love baseball. I have a player's understanding of it. It's very difficult to explain baseball to my wife because she doesn't understand anything that even rhymes with sports. And so we talk about baseball sometimes, and she just looks at me probably the same way that I look at her when she talks about fashion and makeup, that blank stare to pretend I'm listening. But people never really believe me when they ask me who my favorite baseball player is. He's not Tim Tebow. No, it's not Tim Tebow. My favorite baseball player is a man by the name of Jackie Robinson. You guys heard Jackie Robinson? All right. That dude is amazing. Was amazing. He was probably, I would say, one of the greatest first basemen to ever step on the diamond. He was incredible. You guys see the movie 42? Came out, last year? Really good movie. It was a fairly accurate movie. They did a great job with it. Now, if you hadn't seen the movie 42, what Jackie's mostly known for, besides just being an absolutely amazing baseball player, is he was the first African American to play Major League Baseball. And that's amazing in itself. It's not a pressure Jackie ever really wanted, because breaking through that color barrier brought a lot of dangerous situations to Jackie's life, a lot of stressful moments. And his family was constantly receiving death threats because he was playing baseball. Every time he stepped onto the field, the whole crowd would boo. And you guys have ever been to a baseball game, you know, the infielders come out and they throw the ball to each other, warming up. His teammates wouldn't even throw him the ball at first base during warm-ups. So for several games that first season, Jackie would run out onto the field, stand by first base, and just kind of hold his head down while the crowd booed him and his teammates ignored him. It gave him to the point where the teammates wouldn't even let him shower in the shower room until they all had finished. It was brutal for Jackie coming up. Jackie actually almost quit baseball because of all of that. But Jackie persevered through all of that, and about midway through his first season on the team, they had gone on a long away stretch and came back for their home stand. And typical stuff, he walks out on the field, everybody's booing and screaming, and he's standing there with his head down, and then the shortstop walks over. Anybody ever heard of Pee Wee Reese? Yeah, Pee Wee Reese, he was the shortstop. Another good player. I think if he had not been on the team with Jackie Robinson, he would be remembered as a great player, but he was on a team with Jackie Robinson, so you're mediocre to average, brother. He walks over to first base, and he puts his arm around Jackie Robinson, and he spins Jackie around, and they face the crowd together. And the crowd just shuts up real quick. And Jackie Robinson said that Pee Wee Reese leaned over and said, "Hey, next time we take the field, we'll all wear the number 42, and they won't be able to tell us apart." Later on in life, Jackie was interviewed, and he said, "It was that single arm around my shoulder that saved my baseball career." Because he was going to quit. He got tired of being attacked and his family being threatened. But Pee Wee Reese took advantage of a single moment. And he gave us the gift of Jackie Robinson in the baseball world, because that's exactly what Jackie Robinson was a gift. And even today, when you watch baseball, if you've watched Jackie Robinson play, you can see his influence on base runners and first basemen. It's really cool. But moments like that they make for really amazing stories, and they make for somewhat decent movies. And we love to see these moments in the lives of other people. But what if we could capture these moments in our lives, that we could capitalize on a single moment where our purpose can have an impact? So today I want us to inject ourselves into the story of Esther, essentially right where we left off last week. And where we left off was Esther had decided that she was going to go see King Xerxes. Even though it might cost her her life, she was going to go and she was going to make a plea for the entire Jewish nation. But Esther had the weight of that nation on her shoulders because Haman, you guys remember Haman? He's the antagonist in this story. I just prefer to call him the jerk. He was the jerk. He was going to try to kill all the Jews. He was basically plotting to kill the queen. But it was very important in the kingdom, and so she had to be very careful about how she was going to go about this situation and reveal Haman's plot. And so the first thing she did was she told Mordecai, call all the Jews together and let's have a fast together. So let's read Esther 4. Go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf. And do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the wall, and if I perish, I perish. Probably the second most famous line in Esther is, if I perish, I perish. The first being, for such a time as this. But Esther decided before she embarked on this next step, she first needed to engage her support network. She called in for everybody, every Jew, to fast. Now, this is the only incident in the Old Testament where the word fast is not used right next to the word prayer. And that may have something to do with the fact that God is not mentioned in the book of Esther. So prayer here is actually kind of implied in the Hebrew. So she called them all to fasting and prayer. I need you guys to pray for me as I go do this. And at this point in her life, I'm not really convinced that Esther knew this was her purpose. I'm thinking Esther probably just thought this was a really bad situation to be in. She probably had no grandiose ideas that she was going to be able to save a nation because she didn't know if the king would raise the scepter or not. Can you imagine kind of the emotional gamut she was running through mentally when she was walking towards the king's throne room doors, knowing that if he didn't raise the scepter, her head would be detached from her body, which is no way to go? That's got to be a hard thing to do. And I often wonder, was she trying to think of a different way out? You know, could I possibly send one of my servants in to talk to the king for me? And right before she dies, maybe she can get enough courage to yell, "Hey, Esther wants to see you." Is there anybody else? Is there any other way? Can I write a note and just tell him? What can I do? But she overcame that, and as fear began to creep in, I know she second-guessed her choices with the fear, but she went anyway. And I think there's something very important for us to kind of decipher here. It's okay to have doubts. Esther didn't really know what the king was going to do when she showed up, but she went anyway. She resolved in her heart that her purpose was greater than the possibility of losing her life. She decided that I have to do this. I know it's scary, but I need to step forward. And guys, it's not the fact that you have doubts that hinders your purpose. It's when you allow your doubts to prevent you from acting that your purpose gets hindered. So we press forward, we lower our shoulders, we move forward, and we continually take steps in the pursuit of our purpose. But we must understand that God has ordered our steps, and God has no doubt about the next step. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." See, Esther made a plan. I'm going to go and I'm going to mention something to the king about Haman wanting to kill me. And so she's operating within this plan, but God was the one establishing the foundations on which she walked to accomplish her purpose. And God's called you to a purpose. And he's established your steps. But whenever you step into your God-given purpose, one thing is going to happen, and I promise you this is going to happen. The enemy's going to attack you. He's going to come at you with everything he's got because he doesn't want you to fulfill your God-given purpose. And one of the biggest weapons the enemy has that keeps us from fulfilling our purpose is fear. And there's a lot of different kinds of fear, but fear of the unknown, I think, is what we can boil all this down to when it comes to failure to act. Because it manifests itself in different ways. We can have a fear of failing. I'm not sure if I'm going to succeed or not, so I'm not even going to try. Or he could convince us that there's fear for our personal safety. I may not live through this, so why not even start it? We could talk about the fear of not being able to provide for our families. Am I still going to be able to pay the bills, feed my kids, all that stuff if I step out and into this purpose? Or maybe it's just simply the fear of looking like an idiot. Maybe you don't want to look foolish. All of that is boiled down to the fear of the unknown. But family, don't let fear hold you back when God calls you forward. Because if God has established your steps, He knows where you're going. He just needs you to move your legs. And think about this. This is comforting to me. Your steps are established and guarded by the all-knowing, all-powerful creator of the universe. He's the one that's establishing your next move. There's no power of darkness or death of hell that can pluck you out of the hand of God. All we have to do is simply trust His plan and act. Anybody ever seen Indiana Jones? I don't know which one this is, because there's like 40 of them. But I'm pretty sure it's the one where he's searching for the Holy Grail. And but there's a part where he's walking through this cave, and there's a huge chasm he has to cross. And there's basically an invisible bridge there. And of course, he throws a little bit of dirt and sees it, but he steps out onto this bridge that he can't see. I think that is a good analogy for how we walk by faith and not by sight. We know God is calling us to move in a certain direction, and God has created all things and has established our steps to move in that direction. We just step out onto the unseen bridge, trusting that God will hold us up. We simply have to act. Well, let's continue the story and see how Esther acted. It's in Esther chapter 5. On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, in front of the king's quarters, while the king was sitting on his royal throne inside the throne room opposite the entrance to the palace. And when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won favor in his sight, and he held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter, and the king said to her, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given you even to half of my kingdom." And Esther said, "If it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared for the king." Then the king said, "Bring Haman quickly, so that we may do as Esther has asked." So the king and Haman came to the feast that Esther had prepared. There's a little glimpse here of Esther's faith that I think it's really easy to skim over. She didn't know if the king was going to raise the scepter and save her life. But if you look at the words she used, she said, "I want you guys to come over to a feast that I have prepared. I've already done it. Your feast is already made." So if he would have raised the golden scepter, her handmaidens would have had a lot of food to eat. But she was trusting that because God called her forward, He was going to establish her steps. So she'd been fasting and praying for 3 days prior to the approach of the king. And so it shows us there that she believed that prayer and fasting were effective avenues or effective weapons for warfare. But her purpose required action. The enormity of the task in front of her didn't paralyze her. She didn't grow fearful because the entire Jewish nation was waiting on her and trusting in her to accomplish her purpose. But have you guys ever passionately prayed that God will intervene in a situation? Have you ever been just deeply in prayer about a certain maybe area of the world or maybe a certain thing going on? And prayer is good, and I'm not telling you what to pray, but I am telling you that sometimes you got to act. Sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is and step out on faith and take care of the things that you see that's wrong in the world. If you see something that's dissatisfying to you, see what you can do to correct it. And then that you may actually find your purpose. But I love Esther's reaction. I love the way that she takes action. Because I'd imagine that Esther or somebody in her shoes would just bust up into the throne room and be like, "Hey, you need to get your boy. Your boy's trying to kill me. You need to do something about it." But she didn't do that. She said, let's have a party. Why don't you bring Haman over? I've made you guys some food. Let's sit down. Let's drink some wine. And let's chill out for a little bit. And Xerxes is like, cool. Let's do it. Because everybody's going to a party, right? So he's cool with that. He's cool. But this whole party is going on, and Xerxes makes the same request. He says, what do you want? I'll give you up to half of my kingdom. And Esther says, I want you to come back tomorrow so we can have another party. Which is weird to me. But if you look at the Hebrew there, it actually insinuates that there was some form of interruption, that the king had been summoned or maybe something happened, he had to go. And so instead of just blurting out her request, she said, why don't you guys just come over again tomorrow? Now, I think there's a really good point here of Esther being sensitive to God's leading, because God was still moving pieces on the other areas of the situation. And so Esther was not able to give her request because God had not prepared everything. God was preparing her and what was going to happen next. So what happens after the feast? Well, Haman goes home, and he decides he's going to kill Mordecai, which is Esther's cousin. So he builds some gallows like out in his front yard. It's got this big hangman's thing. So like it's 50 or 60 cubits high. This thing is massive. And so he's going to go to the king and request permission to hang Haman in these gallows that he's just built in his front yard. Meanwhile, the king's not able to sleep. So he requests that a book of records be brought to him. And at the same time that Haman's building these gallows to hang Mordecai, Xerxes reads about the time Mordecai saved his life and nobody celebrated him for it. And so Haman walks in, and the king quickly says, hey, what would you do if, what should be done to the guy that the king wants to honor? And Haman's like, I would give him a parade. I would give him all this stuff. And Haman's so self-absorbed here that he thinks the king's talking about him. So let's stop for a second. Let's dissect two things here, two types of purpose. Let's look at Haman's purpose. Haman's purpose is selfishness. Is that he only focuses on his glory and his honor and his happiness. And he's so self-absorbed that he automatically thinks that the king is talking about honoring him. There's no room for anybody else in Haman's worldview because it's all about him. So let's learn from his mistakes. If we have a worldview that's all about us or based on worldly honors, that is easily extinguished. We are all basically one fatal car crash away from our worldly honors being extinguished. But Esther, she had a different purpose. She took on a purpose that not only benefited her, but it benefited the totality of God's people. Her purpose was an other-centered worldview. She was willing to sacrifice her own life to benefit the other Jewish people. Haman's purpose leads to death, but Esther's leads to life. So now Mordecai's got his gallows built, or Haman's got the gallows built for Mordecai. Let's not screw this up here. The king has honored Mordecai, and now they're back at the party. It's all the way over in Esther chapter 7. This is crazy because they go to the banquet. The king makes the exact same request. What is your request? I'll give you half my kingdom. And that's when she drops the bomb, man. She's like, my people and I are about to be killed, and Xerxes is hot. He's like, who's going to do it? And she's like, him. And I can see it in my mind. The little shoulder sway, him. I can see her do it. Xerxes is flipping out, man. And Xerxes actually leaves the room for a minute, and Haman runs over to beg for his life, and he throws himself down on the couch. At the same moment, Xerxes walks in. So, oh boy thinks Haman's getting fresh with his wife, which makes him matter, which is hilarious. But in this huge, cosmic twist, Haman gets hanged on the gallows that he built for Mordecai. And Mordecai gets put in charge of Haman's family and gets his job. So not only did he take the boy's wife and kids, he took his position in the kingdom. That's crazy. God does some funny stuff. But Esther was elevated to the position of queen in the greatest empire on the earth at that time. And God placed her in a position where she could pursue her purpose. Where's God placed you? Think about your circles of influence. You've got a lot of them, and if you don't sit down and think about them, sometimes they're easy to forget about. But think about the influence you have at home. If you have children, they're watching you, they imitate you, they do things you do. And I can speak from experience that when a 6-year-old repeats something that I say, it sounds a little not as nice when a 6-year-old says it. Your wife or your husband, you begin to act alike. You have influence there. You can guide each other. Your neighborhood. Think about your neighborhood. What kind of influence do you have on your neighbors? Think about work and church. You know, over the course of a lifetime, you'll spend 90,000 hours at work. What kind of influence can you have in 90,000 hours? It's amazing to think about. When you go to these places and you're at home and you're in your neighborhood, you're at work, I want you to get aware. Be spiritually aware. Look for what God is already doing there and see how you can be involved in it. Because God's working all the time, and He's placed you in these spots so that you can be a part of that work. So see how you can partner with God. He has a purpose for you to fulfill. And I know sometimes we hear these stories about a purpose being fulfilled, and we see it as a giant leap of faith. But if you were to ask the person that took that giant leap of faith, I don't think they would agree with that assessment. I think they would say it wasn't a giant leap, it was a series of small, calculated steps that I took. I was intentional about being available for my purpose. So I want you guys to practice that. Practice doing calculated small steps. Don't look for the big win. Just look for the next move. And the next move might be hard. But JFK said, we do these things because they are hard. I want you guys to remember something, that your purpose demands persistence. You have to keep moving forward. You have to keep moving. You can have setbacks, hard times, curveballs. All those things are expected in the pursuit of your purpose. But every time a setback occurs, you have a decision to make. You could quit and absolutely miss out on what God has for you, or you can lower your shoulder, plant your feet, and take another step. That's what Esther did. Esther persisted through the fear of dying, a brutal death. She persisted through an unwelcome interruption to her party to finally get to the point where she could reveal and save an entire nation of people. If you guys are willing to do what others won't, God will use you to accomplish what others can't. If you'll be the one that lowers your shoulder, that steps in, that leans forward into adversity, God will use you to accomplish amazing things in every one of your circles of influence. God may simply be waiting for someone to take a step. That someone could be you. It could be me. You know, persistence is the only thing that will get you through to your purpose. Think of it like this. Your purpose is a destination, but persistence is the vehicle you use to get there. You are either in one of two locations right now in your life. You are either in the midst of adversity or you're about to go into some. Okay? There's no other way about it. What you do with that adversity determines what happens at the end of it. If you quit, you may not get the blessing that God has at the end of it. If you quit in the midst of adversity, maybe God has you in adversity to teach you something and you quit and walk out. God may lead you right back into the same style of adversity. But if you walk through that adversity, if you persist through that adversity, you can learn the lessons in life that God is trying to teach you in that and move on to the next one. Move on to the mountaintops. because you have to go through the valley to get to the top, right? Do you guys know that Thomas Edison tried 10,000 times to create a light bulb? 10,000 times. And it's funny what he said. He said, I have not failed. I've simply found 10,000 ways that don't work. Henry Ford went bankrupt 3 times before he was able to invent his first automobile. But now, Ford is everywhere because he persisted through the adversity. And most people fail to persist in adversity because they fail to plan for adversity. We all dream of a fairy tale world where we just get to our purpose and our destination without any adversity, but in the real world, adversity comes. So let's prepare for it. I'm going to give you 3 steps to prepare for it, okay? The first step is you have to start. You have to take the first step. Because if you never start, you'll never fail, right? But if you never start, you'll never succeed. You got to twist your thinking. Don't focus on the negative. Don't focus on the negative. If I don't start, I won't fail. Focus on if I never get this started, I'll never succeed at it. You begin with your passion. Work towards your passion. Solve a problem. When that problem's solved, you solve the next problem. When that problem's solved, you keep moving. You go to the next step. And eventually, when you've solved enough problems, you get to fulfill your purpose. Just keep moving. The second step you need to do is always review and revise. Now, I was in the military for several years. I know several of you are currently or have been. I saw a beautiful description of being in the military the other day. It was, the military life is starting out with plan A and then immediately moving to plan B while trying to figure out what plan C was and then just going back to do plan A anyway. So you've always got to reviewing. You got to review what you do. Take the next step. Look at where you've been. Did this work? Did that work? Did this not work? Why did it not work? Review, revise, and don't be married to a plan that you can't break up with, okay? Because I can tell you that my life was supposed to do this, and God had my life do this. I was all over the place. I've been through everything, it seems like. The last step to persist through your purpose is always hustle. All right, you set a goal, you work like crazy, and you be consistent. I saw a meme on Facebook a couple weeks ago that says you need to hustle until your haters ask if you're hiring. All right? Don't let the naysayers get you down. Always hustle. Always be working on something. And when I say always work on something, you need to always work on finding where you're going to rest. Okay? Oh, don't forget to rest. Persistence is key to accomplishing anything. Adversity may come and adversity may try to knock the wind out of your sails. But just remember that the steps that you're taking in your God-given purpose were established by the God that created the universe. And there's nothing that He created that makes Him nervous. He's got this. So the key to persisting is trusting God. The key to persisting is knowing that God has already established and put this thing together for you. You may not see the next step, but that doesn't mean the next step isn't there. It just means that it's not time yet for God to reveal that step to you. And you may be like Indiana Jones. You may just have to step off the cliff. Because I'll tell you what, if you fall off the cliff or you land on a sidewalk that's invisible, you'll still be exactly where God needs you to be. Because He'll come get you. So let me challenge you this week. I want to challenge you to persist in all things. Persist at work. See, tomorrow morning, you guys are going to wake up, you're going to go to work, but I don't want you to think about it as work. I want you to think that tomorrow morning I wake up and I get to go to my mission field. And you work persistently, and you work like God Himself has asked you to fill out that report. And you You spread joy. You spread cheer. When that coffee pot turns on in the morning and your heart whispers, "Good morning, Lord," today we're going to persist through all things. Persist in school. School is one of the hardest mission fields on the planet. Persist in ministry and family and relationships. Persist in your marriage. All of these things require persistence to succeed. Now, I want you to learn from Esther today. I want you to learn that things aren't going to go your way. I want you to know that you're going to learn that there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, there's going to be in-between times. But Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he that lives inside you is greater than he that lives in the world. So if you guys will stand with me, I want to pray for you. Another thing I want us to do as a family is I want us to hold each other accountable to persisting through the good times and the bad. So let's pray. Father, thank you so much that you have established our steps, that you know the beginning from the end, and that you know, God, that you have got this worked out. Help us and teach us to trust in you. Father, let your perfect love cast out all fear. Teach us to persist. Teach us to chase after you, to chase after the purpose that you've given us in this life. Teach us to live as Jesus did. In his name, amen.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High.
name. What a powerful name. Guys, I want to thank you all for being here with us this morning. I hope God stirred your heart as well, just like He did mine. I want to thank you guys for putting up with the heat. Anybody else feeling that too? I've already texted the AC guys, so don't let that deter you next week. But hey, I'm excited because God's doing something great in your hearts and lives. And as a pastor, I love seeing what He's doing. I believe that God has a purpose. I believe that He has a plan for your life. As David talks about, if we're willing to be persistent and step forward into it, God's faithful. But let me tell you something. God also has a purpose for our church family. Not just for us individually, but for our whole church family. We believe that purpose and our mission that He's given us is to bring people to life. To bring people to life. So as you go today, remember that purpose of your church family, to bring people to life. Let that change everything about how you interact with people. Let the words that come out of your mouth be words of life and hope. Let people see the difference in you. Let the way you live bring them to life. And that life is Jesus. Amen? Guys, go out there today. Bring somebody to life. And we'll see you next week. Have a good one, guys.